Before Hollywood ever caught up, Bruce Lee had already rewritten what action meant. Every punch, every scream, every slow-motion shot wasn't just choreography, it was philosophy in motion. But behind those iconic fight scenes were hidden truths that even die-hard fans have never heard of. Let us dive into the top 10 facts about Bruce Lee's movies that will completely change how you see the dragon forever. For 10. The Big Boss. Almost never made Bruce Lee a star. When The Big Boss hit Hong Kong theaters in 1971, people didn't just line up, they rioted to get in. It broke every box office record in Asia and turned Bruce Lee into a phenomenon overnight. But here's the twist. Bruce wasn't even supposed to be the main star. Originally, Golden Harvest planned to spotlight actor James Tien. Bruce was cast as a secondary character, a cousin in the story. Midway through filming, though, the director noticed something electrifying. Whenever Bruce stepped into a scene, the crew stopped what they were doing to watch. He had that magnetic aura, the kind you can't fake. So the production quietly flipped the script. Bruce's character took center stage and Tien was pushed into the background. What started as a modest martial arts flick suddenly became Bruce Lee's movie. During filming in Thailand, the production faced brutal heat and minimal resources. Bruce often clashed with the director, insisting on authenticity in every fight sequence. He refused to use wire tricks or camera cheats, saying, "If I can't do it for real, it doesn't belong on film." The result? The Big Boss felt raw, dangerous, and brutally real. So real, in fact, that several scenes were banned in Malaysia and Singapore for being too violent. It was the first time audiences saw martial arts not as graceful dance, but as primal expression. And with that, Bruce Lee didn't just enter cinema, he punched through it. Number 9. Fist of Fury was banned in several countries for political reasons. A year later, Bruce Lee took his rising fame and channeled it into fury. Literally. Fist of Fury, also known as The Chinese Connection, wasn't just a martial arts film. It was a cultural explosion. Set in Shanghai during Japan's occupation, Bruce played Chen Zhen, a student avenging his master's death while standing up to Japanese oppressors. The movie's energy was electric, but its message, Chinese pride and resistance, was controversial. In Hong Kong, audiences cheered wildly as Bruce smashed a wooden sign reading, "No dogs and Chinese allowed." It was cathartic, especially for viewers who had lived under colonial rule. But in other places, that same scene was seen as incendiary. The film was banned in several countries, including parts of Southeast Asia, for stirring anti-Japanese sentiment. Even Japan delayed its release for years, fearing it might reignite historical tensions. Behind the scenes, Bruce pushed his co-stars to deliver real emotion. He didn't want stylized anger. He wanted truth. During one take, he told actor Riki Hashimoto, who played the Japanese villain, "Don't act like you hate me. Feel like you hate me." The tension was so palpable that bystanders thought a real fight was breaking out. But the real power of Fist of Fury came from what it symbolized. It was the first Asian action movie where the hero didn't bow to Western or colonial forces. Bruce made it clear this was about reclaiming dignity through strength. The film inspired generations of Asian youth worldwide to see martial arts not just as combat, but as identity. And with that, Bruce Lee had done something no kung fu master before him had ever done. He turned martial arts cinema into a movement. 8. Way of the Dragon. Gave the world the most legendary fight scene in movie history. By 1972, Bruce Lee had grown tired of being just another actor for hire. He wanted control over the camera, the choreography, and the message. So he wrote, directed, and starred in The Way of the Dragon. It wasn't just his first directorial project, it was the birth of modern martial arts cinema. Shot primarily in Rome, the film broke boundaries with its famous finale, Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris in the Colosseum. The fight wasn't just brutal, it was cinematic poetry. Every strike, every pause, Every breath was deliberate. Bruce designed the battle to tell a story. The clash between East and West, speed and power, philosophy and brute force. What most people don't know is that Bruce choreographed the entire fight without a script. He and Chuck spent 3 weeks refining every move until it felt like two philosophies colliding rather than two men fighting. In one interview, Norris recalled, "Bruce told me, 'You'll start as the strong one, but I'll adapt. You'll fight with muscle. I'll fight with mind.'" Bruce even inserted subtle humor and emotion into the battle. When Chuck's chest hair gets ripped off and blown away mid-fight, that wasn't a blooper. It was Bruce's way of humanizing the moment, showing that even warriors could smile in combat. The Colosseum duel became a cultural milestone. Critics called it the most elegant fight scene ever filmed. Hollywood directors later studied it for decades. It influenced Rocky, The Matrix, and even John Wick. And yet, the film's deeper message was often missed. Victory comes not from aggression, but from evolution. Bruce's character wins because he adapts, just like Bruce did in life. Number 7. Enter the Dragon almost got canceled by Hollywood. By 1973, Bruce was finally invited to make a Hollywood-backed film. The result, Enter the Dragon, would become a global phenomenon, but its creation was almost a disaster from day one. The studio executives wanted to water it down. They told Bruce to make the fights shorter, the dialogue simpler, and to tone down the philosophy. Bruce refused. He believed martial arts wasn't just about fighting. It was about expressing the human body honestly. When Warner Brothers suggested hiring a white actor as the main hero to help sales, Bruce reportedly walked out of the meeting. He told producer Fred Weintraub, "If I'm not the star, I'm not in the film." His confidence paid off. Weintraub backed him, and Bruce became the first Asian actor to headline a major Hollywood action movie. The filming itself was grueling. Bruce choreographed all the fight sequences, often redoing scenes for hours until every movement told a story. In the mirror room finale, where Bruce faces Han, the villain with the steel claw, every reflection was intentional. Bruce used mirrors to symbolize how enemies often reflect our inner fears. But tragedy struck before the movie's release. Bruce died just 6 days before Enter the Dragon premiered. The world never got to see his reaction to his own triumph. The film earned over $200 million worldwide, transforming Bruce Lee from a local icon into a mythic figure. In America, critics praised his charisma, his speed, and his message. For the first time, an Asian actor wasn't portrayed as a sidekick or stereotype. He was the hero. And though Bruce never lived to see it, Enter the Dragon didn't just break box office records, it broke racial barriers. After its success, Hollywood's perception of Asian talent changed forever. Every martial arts star, from Jackie Chan to Jet Li to Donnie Yen, walked through the door Bruce Lee had kicked open. Joker 6, Game of Death, was never finished, yet became his most mysterious film. Game of Death was supposed to be Bruce Lee as ultimate statement, a film that summed up his entire philosophy of martial arts and life. But it turned into something else entirely, a cinematic ghost story. Bruce began filming Game of Death in 1972, right after The Way of the Dragon. The concept was groundbreaking. A martial artist must ascend a 5-story pagoda, facing a different fighting master on each level, each representing a style or philosophy he must overcome. It wasn't just a movie. It was a metaphor for spiritual evolution. Bruce meticulously designed the story to reflect his Jeet Kune Do principles, absorbing what is useful, rejecting what is not, and expressing oneself honestly. Every opponent represented a rigid system of combat that Bruce's character had to adapt beyond. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bruce's real-life student and NBA legend, played the final guardian, symbolizing the ultimate test, facing one's own limitations. But before Bruce could complete it, he was called away to film Enter the Dragon. And then, just months later, he was gone. After his death, Golden Harvest decided to finish Game of Death using body doubles, archive footage, and even cardboard cutouts of Bruce's face. The result was eerie, especially the funeral scene, which used real footage from Bruce Lee's actual funeral. Fans were both fascinated and disturbed. The movie became a mix of brilliance and exploitation, and yet it carried haunting symbolism. The yellow jumpsuit Bruce wore, now one of the most iconic costumes in film history, represented simplicity and purity. Decades later, Quentin Tarantino would pay tribute to it in Kill Bill. Even unfinished, Game of Death became one of Bruce's most analyzed works. It stood as a reminder that he was more than a fighter. He was a philosopher who believed that life, like combat, was about continuous transformation. 5. Bruce Lee's fight scenes changed how Hollywood filmed action. Forever before Bruce Lee, Hollywood fights looked fake. Actors threw slow punches, stuntmen exaggerated their falls, and the camera cut too often to hide the lack of skill. Then Bruce came along and shattered the entire system. From The Big Boss to Enter the Dragon, Bruce personally choreographed nearly every fight he ever filmed. He introduced a new rhythm: real speed, real impact, and real storytelling. He believed every move should have a purpose and emotion. If his character was angry, the strikes had weight. If he was calm, they flowed like water. Bruce also revolutionized camera work. He slowed down certain movements not to make them flashy, but to help audiences appreciate the technique. He shot wide, not close, so the viewer could see full-body movement, a key principle later adopted by directors like the Wachowskis and Christopher Nolan. He was one of the first to use what we now call fight scene pacing. Instead of endless action, he alternated fast bursts with still moments, allowing viewers to breathe. It's the same rhythm modern blockbusters still use, from The Matrix to John Wick and Shang-Chi. But perhaps his greatest influence was emotional. Before Bruce, martial arts were exotic background flavor in Western films. After Bruce, they became cinematic art. He taught filmmakers that a fight could reveal character, emotion, and philosophy, all without a single word. His influence reached beyond Hollywood. Hong Kong cinema exploded with creativity after Bruce's death. Directors like John Woo and Tsui Hark borrowed his kinetic style, fusing martial arts with modern storytelling. Even video games like Street Fighter and Tekken drew inspiration from his posture, speed, and signature battle cry. Decades later, Hollywood still uses the blueprint Bruce created. Every time you see a hero face 10 men and win through skill and speed rather than bullets, you're watching a piece of Bruce Lee's legacy in motion. Number 4. His movies were secretly used as training material by real fighters. Bruce Lee didn't just inspire moviegoers, he inspired the entire combat world. Long before YouTube tutorials or UFC analysis, fighters studied his movies to learn how to move, strike, and react. And this isn't a myth, it's documented fact. When Enter the Dragon hit American theaters in 1973, professional athletes, boxers, and even military trainers took notice. What Bruce demonstrated wasn't exaggerated choreography. It was real, efficient combat technique captured on camera. He showed how to blend Eastern philosophy with Western practicality. Muhammad Ali once said he watched Bruce's movements like studying film of an opponent. Bruce, in turn, had studied Ali's footwork frame by frame while developing his own style. That cross-influence changed modern fighting forever. Later, in the 1990s, as mixed martial arts began to rise, pioneers like Royce Gracie, Georges St. Pierre, and Anderson Silva openly credited Bruce as a foundational influence. They weren't copying his kicks, they were following his mindset. "Absorb what is useful," Bruce had said, "and reject what is useless." That single idea predicted MMA decades before it existed. Even elite military units adopted his films as visual study. U.S. Marines and law enforcement academies screened Enter the Dragon and Fist of Fury to discuss stance, awareness, and adaptability. They noted how Bruce maintained composure even while surrounded, how he used environment, ropes, poles, walls, to turn disadvantages into weapons. In Asia, Fist of Fury became an underground training resource for martial arts schools banned under political regimes. Young students watched those grainy VHS tapes secretly at night, mimicking Bruce's movements as acts of rebellion and pride. To this day, fight choreographers and professional trainers alike treat his movies like textbooks. The techniques may look cinematic, but the principles, balance, rhythm, and self-awareness remain pure combat truth. In short, Bruce's films didn't just change cinema. They quietly trained a generation of warriors. Number 3. Enter the Dragon, hid deep symbolism. Most viewers missed. Most people remember Enter the Dragon for its epic fights, the mirror duel, the clawed villain, the island fortress. But beneath the punches and kicks lies a dense web of symbolism that Bruce Lee personally designed to deliver his life's message. At its core, Enter the Dragon isn't about fighting, it's about self-mastery. The tournament on Han's Island represents temptation, fame, money, power, ego. Each opponent Bruce faces mirrors one of those traps. The real battle isn't external, it's internal. Take the famous Hall of Mirrors scene. On the surface, it's a stunning visual sequence, but Bruce insisted on filming it because it embodied his philosophy. To know yourself, you must look inward. Every reflection represents an illusion of identity, anger, pride, fear. By shattering the mirrors, Bruce symbolically destroys false selves until only truth remains. Even the film's opening scene holds hidden meaning. When Bruce spars with Sammo Hung, he begins calm and disciplined, then transitions into fury and control. He's not just showing martial skill, he's illustrating Wu Wei, the Taoist concept of effortless action. The battle ends not with domination, but with understanding. The film also reflects Bruce's real-life journey as an Asian man navigating Western systems. The villain, Han, a man who corrupted martial arts for greed, represents everything Bruce refused to become, someone who used skill without honor. Every detail, from the temple drums to the dragon symbol on his outfit, was chosen with intention. Even the title, Enter the Dragon, wasn't random. Warner Brothers originally wanted to call it Blood and Steel, but Bruce fought for the new title, believing the dragon symbolized self-realization. And in a haunting twist of fate, the movie became his spiritual farewell. Released just after his death, it felt like Bruce himself was passing through a doorway, from mortal man to legend. That's why fans don't just watch Enter the Dragon, they study it. It's a martial arts film on the surface, but a philosophical journey beneath. Every kick carried meaning, and every silence spoke louder than words. Number 2. Bruce Lee never dubbed himself, and it was on purpose. Here, as a fact that even hardcore fans often miss. In the original releases of The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon, the voice you hear isn't Bruce Lee's real voice. Every line was dubbed by another actor. It sounds unbelievable, but Bruce allowed it to happen intentionally, because he was playing a much bigger game. When he first started working in Hong Kong cinema, Bruce faced a massive barrier. The industry was dominated by Mandarin language films, but Bruce was raised in Hong Kong and spoke primarily Cantonese and English. His accent wasn't standard enough for the Mandarin-speaking audience of the time. Instead of fighting the studio over it, Bruce focused on his movement, his real language. He once said, "If you truly understand me, you'll understand my body, not my words." His voice, though powerful, became secondary to his expression. Every gesture, glare, and flick of the wrist carried more meaning than dialogue ever could. That's why his fights felt like conversations. But when Enter the Dragon arrived, the first time Bruce's real English voice was heard by global audiences, the world finally experienced the full force of his charisma. His words, spoken in his own cadence, hit differently. Lines like "don't think, feel," and "boards don't hit back" became instant legends because they sounded authentic, not dubbed. Ironically, after his death, international releases of his earlier films were redubbed again using voice actors imitating Bruce's accent. Yet, for true fans, that first moment in Enter the Dragon remains sacred. It is the only time we truly heard the man behind the myth. That choice, to let movement speak louder than words, turned out to be genius. Because Bruce Lee didn't need dialogue to be understood. He made the whole world feel his philosophy through action alone. Mika 1. His final scene. Foreshadowed his death. In one of the most haunting coincidences in cinema history, Bruce Lee's unfinished film, Game of Death, contained a scene that seemed to predict his own fate. In it, Bruce A.'s character is shot by an assassin during a movie shoot, killed by a real bullet accidentally replacing a prop one. Years later, that same tragic scenario eerily repeated itself with his son, Brandon Lee, during the filming of The Crow. When Game of Death was pieced together after Bruce's passing, the production team kept that eerie scene, and audiences around the world couldn't believe what they were watching. Some called it coincidence, others called it prophecy. But in truth, it showed something deeper about Bruce's art. He was obsessed with the line between life and performance. Throughout his career, Bruce blurred that boundary intentionally. He once said, "To live is to express oneself completely." To him, acting wasn't pretending. It was revealing. And Game of Death was his purest expression of that belief. Each level of the pagoda symbolized not just combat mastery but spiritual ascension, moving beyond ego, beyond fear, beyond mortality itself. The fact that his final filmed scene mirrored his own passing only deepened the myth. Bruce Lee became more than a man. He became a symbol of transformation, the idea that truth, once expressed, never dies. Even now, when you watch that unfinished film, you don't just see an actor performing. You see a man leaving a message, frozen in time, that art and life are one continuous flow, and death can never silence a philosophy. Bruce Lee's movies weren't just entertainment, they were revolution. He redefined what cinema could be, turning every frame into a statement about identity, strength, and human potential. From the gritty realism of The Big Boss to the spiritual symbolism of Enter the Dragon, every project he touched became a mirror of his evolving soul. 50 years later, his influence still echoes across film, fighting, and philosophy. Every martial arts movie, every action hero, every slow-motion knockout owes a debt to the man who once said, "Be water, my friend." And, like water, his legacy flows endlessly, shaping every generation that dares to dream bigger, fight harder, and live honestly. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your friends who love action cinema and martial arts history. Subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next deep dive into legendary icons like Bruce Lee. Click Join to become a channel member and unlock exclusive behind-the-scenes content, special features, and bonus videos. And if you want to support us directly, tap the Super Thanks button below. Every contribution helps us keep telling these incredible stories that shaped the world of film. Thanks for watching, and remember, legends like Bruce Lee never fade, they just move with the flow.